So just to kick us off today, I've got a real quick presentation to talk a little bit about the Tech SIG, what we're about, and a few announcements related to ATD. As we're going along, if there's something you need or something you can't see, feel free to throw that in the chat. I'll open up the chat just in case something crazy is going on too. But first thing, before we get going, if you are new to the Technology Special Interest Group, take a minute to pop into the chat and say hello, introduce yourself. I'm always interested to see who we have. We have a lot of people that show up every month, but if you are new, this is your first time at a Technology Special Interest Group meeting, go ahead and throw a message in the chat, say hello. And as we get going, just real quick little ditty about the Technology. We meet the first Friday of every month. For the most part, we do have a schedule change for the month of July, which I'll talk about here in a second. Kelly, welcome. And we talk about anything related to technology in talent development. Typically, our focus is on e-learning and instructional design and technology in the learning space. But we try to keep topics nice and varied to bring in information from all sorts of different experts and mix our sessions with more discussion-based presentations by subject matter experts. And then we do some workshop-based meetings as well. So it's the first Friday of every month from 8 to 9:30 a.m. We do virtual networking for the first half hour. And then we do the main program from 8:30 to 9:30. A little bit about what we have coming up in the coming months. Next month, our session is called LMS, or Let's Talk About It, LMS Talk About It. We're going to focus on our learning management systems. And our goal for this session is to do kind of a showcase or a show and tell of different, how organizations are using their learning management system, how information is organized, how we're getting our learners to engage with it. So I will put this out there to this group, and you'll see in our marketing as well. In the coming months, if you are willing to showcase your organization's LMS, let me know, arich@athene.com. I'll put that in the chat, and I'll also throw it after the fact. We'll get a follow-up email with some takeaway items or some participant materials from today. But if you'd be willing to showcase your LMS, let me know. I would love to do a big show and tell next month. That's June 4th. In July, we have Dan Toft from MDI Incorporated coming in to talk about going virtual and some of the things that he has learned in his experience relating to, fun features of Zoom, how to use team meetings or Teams meetings, engagement with Jamboard, all sorts of fun live online learning activities. So that'll be definitely one to miss, or one not to miss. And then in August, on August 6th, we have Brian Smith from Casey's coming in to share actually the same presentation he gave at DevLearn last year, talking about using scenarios and assessments and feedback to reduce learner overconfidence. So real excited for all of those sessions coming up. We've also got some really cool stuff in the mix for the latter half of the year. We're looking at doing an event about podcasting. We're looking at doing an event about using an agile workflow in learning development. So be on the lookout for those, and we'll keep you guys posted as we go. Coming up in September, two announcements relating to Professional Development Day 2021. The first one is we are going to be producing a video that shares kind of a promotional tool about our special interest group. So we have the Technology Special Interest Group and the Leadership Special Interest Group. The Leadership Group meets the third Friday of every month. And we're looking to put together basically like a promo testimonial based video about our SIGs. And I know we've got a lot of people that find a lot of value in our special interest groups, both the Tech SIG and the Leadership SIG. So I'm throwing this out there to seek volunteers. Depending on what I hear, I'm looking for about 2 to 3 people to represent the Technology SIG. I might start tapping shoulders if I don't have a lot of people express their interest, but basically looking for somebody willing to get on camera and share some information about what they get out of the Tech SIG, why they attend, and why other people should. It's really informal. I want it to be kind of conversation based. And that video is going to debut at PDD, Professional Development Day 2021. So if that is something that suits your fancy or you'd be interested in doing, ideally we'd have people that are currently members of ATD Central Iowa. I know the Tech SIG and the Leadership SIG are free for anybody, member or non-member. Ideally, we'd like to have current ATD Central Iowa members do that. But if you are interested, arich@athene.com. We'd love to hear your interest. and go from there. The other thing about Professional Development Day is that we have requests for proposals. So if you're interested in being a speaker at PDD, this deadline submission is June 11th. You can head out to attdiowa.org and you'll find that information there. Really fun experience. I had the opportunity of presenting in February of 2020. Really, really fun. We have, pretty much anything that you can think of related to talent development, and our theme for this year is pivot. So if you've got a good story or a good experience or project or case study or something that worked for your organization as we've been flexing and pivoting during this pandemic in 2020 and into 2021, definitely encourage you to go out and submit an RFP, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at PDD 2021. Last thing, a little bit about the ATD. So there's both ATD Central Iowa and ATD National. We encourage people, obviously, to become members of our local chapter here in ATD Central Iowa. And some of the things that we see, obviously, we have lots of really good programming events that are available, both free to attend, like our Tech SIGs, and then also paid events. We've got a few coming up here over the next few weeks. You'll get access to a network of talent development professionals, which is really cool. Development opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and discounted power membership. So the power membership is the national membership that you have. And that gives you access to an online library of resources. It's huge. A really great community of national folks that we can tap into and share expertise in. There's really good development programs, educational opportunities, certification opportunities with our national membership. And then obviously you get discounts on national conferences, education programs, credentials, and publications. So if you are not currently an ATD Central Iowa or ATD National member, I encourage you to consider becoming a member. Our membership subscriptions or our memberships last are yearly, and just head out to attdiowa.org or td.org to learn more about that. So with that, let's dive into why everyone's probably here today, and that is for our very own Ms. Carol Dawson. Carol comes to us by way of Nationwide Insurance. Carol is a learning and performance consultant. I think I have known Carol for probably about 10 years now, it seems. And Carol is my, is one of the gurus, I think, of adult learning and computer-based learning, instructional design. She is in her role at Nationwide Insurance, she is designing and developing required enterprise learning activities. She's also the engagement lead for the Accessibility Advocate Forum within Nationwide Insurance, and is also a leader and active member in the Toastmasters. Carol has a master's in adult learning and organizational performance from Drake University. She also holds a CPLP and CPCU designation. We are very excited to have Carol here today to talk about accessibility for everyone. As she is going, before I turn it over to Carol, I will be moderating the chat. So if we have any questions that come up at all during her presentation, feel free to throw those in the chat. We've also got some polling that we'll do here. And if you have a question, you can use, again, throw it in the chat, or if you want to hit that, we have the, I guess we could use the thumbs up icon or the check mark icon within the annotation in the participant panel if you do have a question. But I'll be monitoring that. We'll make sure we get those answered today. So with that, I will stop talking. And Carol, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam, for that lovely introduction. And thank you all for being here for this, what I believe is a very important topic. And I think you do too, because you're spending your Friday morning this way. I am working on sharing my screen. There we go. Being a little slow on the draw today, my computer is. All right, and I need to pop over to that screen. So I will not see any comments you put on the screen. So if you need me to know something, Adam is gonna be my eyes and ears there for that. So let's go ahead. Oh, need to move that. My Zoom box is right over my driver, so that's not gonna work. Okay, today we are going to talk about four key areas here. Why accessibility is important, common accessibility issues and fixes. We're going to do a high-level comparison of how authoring tools handle these accessibility issues. And then I'm going to share some resources with you to dive deeper, because in an hour, there's no way that I can cover everything that there is to know about this topic. Right now, we're going to take a poll, and I'd like to get a sense of what types of digital documents you create. And Adam is going to start that for us.
Looks like we almost have everybody in.
Awesome.
All right, I'm not seeing anything else come in, so I'm going to shut that down and we'll share the results.
Awesome.
Is everybody seeing those on the screen? Just give me a thumbs up in the participant window as long as you can see those.
I did figure out how to get back to the session while I'm not talking. So I want to know, who is it that doesn't have to do emails? We have 3 people that don't do email. Lucky ducky, right? So really pretty much everything. So you're going to find value in everything that we talk about today. Thank you, Adam, for that. In just a moment, I'm going to show you 4 options, and I would like you to type in your discussion guide if you have it, or write down which one of the 4 things I'll show you use the most. So here we go.
And just so you guys know, if you head over to the chat, there's a Word document in there that Carol provided for us, a discussion guide that you can use today to capture your thoughts, and Carol will be pointing to it every so often. So if you head over to the chat there, you should see that accessibility for everyone discussion guide.
So how many of you can complete my instructions? Adam, are we seeing anything in the chat about what we're seeing on the screen?
Nope, not yet.
All right. So with the information you have, how many of you can complete my instructions? Go ahead and give Adam a green check mark if you can follow my instructions to share which one you use most based on what you see. And there's a red X, use that if you cannot.
We're getting in the chat just boxes that say image.
Okay. So what are you going to do? If I've given you this instruction, what are you going to do? And how do you feel about it? How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling a little stressed?
My apologies. I think I may have missed something when I was looking around. What was the instruction that you're referencing? Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. So tell me which of the 4, or write down, you don't have to tell me, but write down which of the 4 that I'm showing you use the most. So let me put you out of your misery. We'll try this again. Now, can you tell me which of these 4 you use the most when you're searching for content? Now that you can see the objects on the screen, you can answer my question. For associates who use assistive technologies like screen readers and braille displays, if the image isn't marked properly, they'll just read the word image aloud or display the word image on the braille reader. So this leaves the person using these tools in the same position you just were, of having to make a decision without information. By briefly describing the image with alternative text, which we call alt tags, individuals using assistive technology can know the choices that they have and complete the activity. So you'll see on the screen it says Creative Commons search page. Visual users will see the image, and screen reader users will hear Creative Commons search page, and so on. So they're able to complete the activity independently. Think about the courses and other documents you create. We're talking about this for several reasons, really. When documents have unmarked images or they're otherwise inaccessible, people with low vision or blindness must ask for assistance from someone else to use it. And I have a quick story that I can't believe I didn't think to share earlier, but I'm going to. I thought of it this morning as we were talking, so I'm going to share it quickly. We have a couple of blind users, associates in Des Moines, and I've become friends with them. They're fabulous, and I was introduced to them because one of our courses was not accessible. And actually, to be honest, most of our courses were not accessible. And so whenever they got to a point where they couldn't continue the course, they would have to contact our learning team, who would then contact the developer, and the developer would sit with that person, walk them through it. And I can't even imagine how demeaning that was, right? And I was sitting with this one gentleman, and he said, we're supposed to take charge of our careers and be independent, and I can't even complete a learning course by myself. And I saw his transcript because I was sitting with him, and he had stacks of courses that were required learning that he just couldn't take. And it was very humbling. And that's really what spurred me on this path of accessibility. So I started making sure my courses were accessible. And his wife is the other person that I'm talking about. And I've been working with her, and she emailed me and she said, I just took my first iDrive by myself. And she was so excited. And I was like, yes, we did it. So giving that independence is huge. Creating accessible courses benefits all of us. Have you ever turned on Captions to watch a video? Maybe you're in a noisy place, or you forgot your headphones, and it just makes it easier to use, right? We've seen training videos or courses, web pages where there are tons of fonts and colors. And if you do the bright red text on a blue background, please don't do that. We've seen colors and flashing objects that just are not pleasant. And there's so much more consumable when we design thoughtfully for color and space. So even if we don't use assistive technology, we can still benefit. Another reason is that more and more companies are experiencing legal issues because they're not making documents accessible for their employees, which means they cannot, again, do their work independently. None of us would like being in this situation, especially if it were avoidable, and it is. The good news is that it's really pretty easy to create accessible courses and documents. In our time together, I'm going to give you some practical tips on addressing some of the most common accessibility issues, as well as how you can fix them. It's not everything, but it's a pretty good start. While I was researching this presentation, I had a conversation with another developer that I reached out to from the Articulate community because she created something that I loved and I wanted to share with you. She offered to let me share with you, in addition to that, a checklist that she put together. And there's a link to it on the screen, which you can't click in the Zoom meeting, but it's here for later in the presentation. But she created this checklist of things to consider for accessibility when you're building a course. The link is also at the end of your discussion guide. So the 4 areas that she put these tips into are on-screen text, images and graphics, audio and video, and then keyboard navigation. So all the tips that I'm going to be sharing with you they fall into these 4 categories. If you're like I was, you might assume that a screen reader can read a document and that you don't have to do anything. And it can read text, but there are some things that are not automatic. So today we're going to talk about a few of the most common issues, along with why they're important and how to fix them. The document I mentioned on the previous slide has a lot more examples of things to help learners who rely on assistive technologies. The other reminder is that while I'm demonstrating these in Microsoft tools, the concepts apply in authoring tools as well. They'll just look a little different. Later, I'll give you a chart on how some of these authoring tools handle the issues, so very, very high level. You've already experienced how impactful alternative text is. So beyond that, we're going to talk about tab order, understandable hyperlinks, appropriate use of color, and styles. Have you ever gone to a website and had to fill in information, and when you tabbed, it didn't make sense? So here's an example. You're filling out something on a website where you have to put in your name and address. So it might start here and then go here, and it just doesn't make sense. It's the same way for the courses we build. If you're like me, I don't necessarily build my page in the order the items show up on the screen. I might do a text box, I might add an image, or I don't like that image, I might do something else, rearrange stuff until I like it. But at the end of the day, when I'm done with that page, I make sure that I review the tab order, and tab order goes left to right and top to bottom. And then if you do that, the experience is more like this. It just goes through each of the fields in the appropriate order. So someone visually would take in all that information, but a screen reader takes them in order. The next thing that we're talking about is the understandable hyperlinks. We've all seen hyperlinks that are several lines long, and for those of you who work at Nationwide, you can have one that looks like what we see on the screen. Or maybe we've added a hyperlink to a logo or an image without providing alternative text. In both cases, someone using a screen reader would not be able to know where the link goes. So here's an example of what a screen reader user would hear for this link.
Carol, I think this time the audio is not playing.
Oh, sad day. Okay, well, then I'm going to pause it because I'm the only one hearing it, apparently. It worked, yeah. I promise we tested this. So it's in the presentation, so go back after the fact. Long story short, the screen reader will read every single character out loud. And with this one, it reads long URL example linked document. So the first link, I counted it, it took 30 seconds for the screen reader to announce, and you still didn't know what it was. The second one was under 5 seconds, and someone who's using that can be announced properly. So if you were guessing, which one would you say gave the better experience? I think we would probably all agree that the second one is a better experience for somebody who needs to have it that way. It's annoying for us just to look at the long one, but it's beyond that for someone with a screen reader.
Carol, let me ask you real quick before you jump into color.
Yeah.
How are those set up? Is that just in like the hyperlink formatting or the text, or how are those generally set up to make sure that you're, you don't have a long URL in there?
Oh yeah, so basically so not everything will work for this because sometimes you need a button, but I will get into this a little bit later, but basically just highlight the text that you want to make a link, right click it, and then pop the link into the box that's right there for the link. And then it's reading the text in line. They can choose to click it. If they have to click it, then you would want to use a button, because I don't know of a way to make the next button, for example, appear if they've clicked inline text. But you would want to make sure that on the button itself that you have alternative text so that it doesn't read the URL.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions to this point? I know I've talked for a little while now.
I don't see anything in the chat. I had one other question, and feel free if you do have any questions as we're going, just throw them in the chat. I'm making sure I monitor, and we'll make sure Carol gets those answered. But when you were talking about tab order, Carol, how do you control tab order within? And you might be talking about this later too, so sorry if I'm stepping on you or getting ahead of things. But how is tab order controlled, top to bottom, left to right?
I will talk about that a little bit. So basically, as far as the on-screen, visually you want it to be left to right, because not everybody uses a screen reader who is visually impaired, right? So you might have someone with low vision. So I think we tend to think in extremes, either they can see it or they can't. But we have people who might just be almost blind, but not quite there, or just need to, maybe they expand their screen a lot so they can see. So you want to naturally set your screen so that it works that way. But then also the tools will react differently to that. So in each of the tools that I'm going to share with you, I'll show you how that works. So that's in my chart at the end.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. So there are a couple issues I'm going to mention with using color. First, ensure that the text is easily distinguishable from the background color for someone with low vision. So of these two text boxes, which one is easier to read? The first one or the second one? Go ahead and pop it into chat.
See, and lots of the second one.
Excellent, good answer. And the PowerPoint accessibility checker thinks so too. And you'll see that in a little bit. All right. So I recently went on vacation and there were bottles like this available to me. And I took a picture of it because I was like, oh, perfect example for the presentation. Who can tell me the scent and type of product in this bottle? Go ahead and put your guess in chat. Because they're on there. Adam, do we have any guesses yet?
Not a clue, says Kelly.
All
no
right.
idea. Essential
Perfect.
oil? Question mark.
Yeah. So it's Mandarina body lotion. In the situation where I thought of this as an example, there were 4 similar bottles with different products. I was in a dimly lit shower in the water without my glasses. I have a mild correction and I struggled to read it. Like I was like, holding it up, and I generally, I think, got the right products, but I struggle even with the mild correction. And the silver lining is that I could share it with you, right? Because someone who has low vision is consuming your work. You want to make sure that you're not giving them this kind of an experience. So the last thing I'll say about color is that you want to make sure that color isn't the only thing you're using as an instruction. If I said to you, click on the red text, and you had some form of color blindness, what would you do? In addition to color, you want to use a shape or a text label. For example, you could say something like, click the rectangular box that says sample text. This benefits not only those with low vision, but also those with color blindness. And there are some color blindness resources in your handout at the end. All right, next let's talk about styles. We're not going to get as deeply into this as we could, but the screenshots will show you where to go to get them, and I'm going to just share you why you want to use them. I never understood Microsoft's built-in styles for the longest time. I just sort of accidentally happened into them, and I didn't always use them. But over the last couple of years, I've realized the benefit for those with disabilities. When you use headers, you help screen readers navigate easily to sections of content, just like you would if you're in a document and there's, that dark blue header line, and I've used them in your handout. It helps you quickly scan a document to see what each section contains. And this screenshot shows you a picture of your accessibility guide and how I got to those styles. And you can see it's on the style, on the home or bin styles tab, and you'll just want to select the text and then click on the styles button, and it'll allow you to pick the one you want. So you could, instead of having to manually, it also saves you time. You don't have to manually change each line of text. You can set it for whichever parts you want, and then if you need to manipulate something separately, you can. The next one is using this little, I don't know how well you can see this, with that little line button that has the 2 arrows up and down. It's the line spacing options. And this allows you to have, instead of using spaces in between each paragraph or line to manipulate the text, you can have uniformity and not have to have extra spaces. And here's why. Every time you hit the enter key more than once, a screen reader says blank every single time. I once used JAWS, which is a screen reader that blind associates use at Nationwide, and I read a document that had 24 spaces in a row. Someone used spaces to get from the end of their content on one page to the next page. To a sighted person, there's no impact, but to someone using a screen reader, very annoying. And this one stopped at 24, but how would you know? How many times do you keep hitting enter? In this case, a page break would have been a very easy fix. Instead of extra spaces, use these line options, and then you could do them at the whole document level or individually. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the accessibility checker. How many of you knew that Microsoft products, at least the Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, I don't know about others, have an accessibility tool built in? If you would give Adam a green check mark if yes, and a red X if no. What are we seeing, Adam?
Or
You're cutting out for me, Adam. I just heard you for a second there.
Dang it.
It was about like 50-50 is what it looked like.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So the accessibility checker not only will check the document for you, it will also break the feedback into 3 categories for you: errors, warnings, and tips. It also tells you why each issue is a problem and gives you step-by-step instructions on how to fix them. I purposely left some accessibility errors in the presentation so I could show you what they look like and how easy they can be to fix. So this worked the other day, so I'm going to assume that it's going to still work. So I'm going to escape out of my presentation because it's actually, I need to go to my tool. Okay, so are we seeing my PowerPoint slide? The kind of design view?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So what you're going to do is go to the review tab and then check accessibility. And I left a few in each of several categories just so that you can get an idea of how this works. Okay, so missing alternative text. So this one happens to be on this slide. So in this case, I would go to add a description. The other thing I want to comment on before I forget is that if you have graphics and you know you haven't added a description yet and they don't show up on this list, I would encourage you to right-click on it and edit the alt text, because what I have found is that sometimes Microsoft will try to give a description. I've never seen one that was ever actually accurate. But what happens is if you don't check it, it gives that system-generated description and it doesn't help your users. So I keep both of these open and then check through all my graphics. But I'll close this one for now just so it's easier for you to see. So what I'm going to do is add a description. So this is screenshot of accessibility checker on review tab. So somebody who's reading this page will know what that is. And then this one, I left this one because this is not really necessary, the green box. They don't need to see that. So it's marked as decorative. Missing slide titles are important because, or not having missing slide titles, because that's how the screen reader navigates the document. So if you have a missing page, it doesn't know what's there. So this is, I'm going to just make a copy of that. And this is slide, oops, 4 of 4. And now that, and they just go away once you address the problem. Okay, so use captions. In this case, I did not use captions here because the text is on the screen. So it's there. So someone who's hard of hearing would be able to see the words there. But if that weren't the case, then you would definitely want to make sure that you had the captions, and the same way there. So it's okay if you are purposeful about it and have a reason and the person can still use it. Hard to read text, we're going to leave that one alone because that's intentionally a demo for you, right? So that we're not going to change that one. And this just tells us to check the reading order. It doesn't go away. There's nothing to click off. It just has you make sure. So remember when we did the address activity where you tab through, it just wants you to check and make sure. So all of these pages have multiple items. I won't go through all of them. I just wanted to share that with you. And then we have a duplicate slide title, understandable hyperlinks. And then it says slide 14. So, and we do have that in 2 places there. So 13 and 14 are the same. So we could just add a 2 here and then it goes away. And then suggested alternative text.
I have a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Giving that slide title a second. I mean, I realize for your purposes, you just can put in a 2 there because you're just kind of showing how it works. But like, if we didn't want to just put a 2 there or whatever, I mean, I've seen presentations where it maybe says continued or, you know,
Yeah,
something along
absolutely.
those lines, but like up above where you have the alt tag example slide, 1 of 4, 2 of 4,
Mhm.
3 of 4. So like in some situations, like in a training, they may not want to have a title on a slide that's that sort of technical, but if we have more than one slide, so if you have, you know, alt tag example, and then the next one was alt tag example continued, and then if you went into 3 and 4, like, do you have a recommendation for how you could title those subsequent slides in a way that would look a little more, I don't know what the word is, just not so technical, not so page number?
And you're seeing it right here. So I put the title up at the top of the page where it's out of view when you're sharing the presentation. And then you could just use a text box and put your real title and then mark it as decorative so that the screen reader doesn't see it twice.
Okay, I didn't catch that. Cool, thank you.
I hadn't shared that part yet, so good question.
Okay. That's typical me going too deep. Thanks.
No, I'm glad you did, because I actually have it later that I was going to share, but in case I forgot, we've already covered it. So that's perfect. But down here at the bottom, you can see why to fix it and then how to fix it. So if you don't remember how to fix it, just remember the check accessibility button and it'll take you through the rest. Okay, so now I'm going to get back to the slide I was on and then restart the presentation, hopefully. Slideshow from current slide. Everybody think happy thoughts. Yay! Are you seeing the accessibility checker slide?
Yep, we got it.
Sweet. Okay. Next, it's time for a poll. We want to know what authoring tools you use, and that'll take Adam just a moment to load.
Should be seeing it now. Looks like we're also getting some Movely, Xyleme, learning content management system, SAP Litmus content tool, some third-party content in addition to what we're seeing. Looks like we got most of our responses in there, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Perfect.
So you should be seeing those now. Articulate Storyline and Rise are the predominant favorites, followed by Camtasia, Captivate, and then some of the other things I just mentioned.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Get back to my notes here. Most of the information that I'm going to share with you is based on my own experience as well as some research. I know the least about Captivate, so some of you may have workarounds for things that I am not aware of. So just take this part with a little bit of a grain of salt, and feel free to comment in chat if you have a tip or a hack to share with the group. Also, in your discussion guide are links to current Vpat documents, which are this spelled out in the document, but basically it's how each tool handles accessibility based on the 508 compliance, and there may also be the WCAG standards in there as well. So they show you, they can be helpful to you if you have a specific activity that you want to use. It'll tell you if it's accessible or not, or how accessible it is. Okay, so the first one is tab order. So I did this for each of the 5 things we talked about. So tab order, Storyline 360, it's driven by the timeline. And the thing I love most about Storyline from an accessibility perspective is that you can override the tab order. So it works from bottom to top, but if you, and it doesn't, if you mark something as decorative, it's there, but it doesn't show it to the screen reader. So whatever's left, it will show them in the order that it's listed in the tab order, and you can manipulate it if you need to. I don't know that I've ever needed to actually manipulate one, but you can. In Rise isn't there yet from an accessibility perspective. Its initial purpose was to answer the need for mobile, and it's beautiful. I love Rise for so many reasons. One of them is that it is beautifully mobile, and you only have to do it once. You don't have to, like Lectora, you have the 5 views, and you have to start with the top level and then work down, and it's clunky. And Rise is not. But the trade-off at this point is until they get it fully accessible, you either have to be really creative with the activities that you do, and maybe even some JavaScript. We've used some JavaScript for a couple of things. Skip navigation's automatic in Rise, and a downfall at this point is that each lesson or quiz reads as one page. So if you're familiar with Rise quizzes, you have like the first question, it looks like a piece of paper, and then the second one comes in, and the third question comes in, looks like a piece of paper. It's all one big piece of paper. Think of like a roll of paper, and it's just, adding them in. So from a design perspective, visually, it's beautiful, right? But for a screen reader user, they basically have to read through every question again because it's starting at the bottom. So they have to kind of work back up to get to the point where, where they can read the next question. It's annoying. So that's actually something that I want to try to tackle.
And Carol,
because it hasn't.
Sir, can you share, you mentioned some activities in Rise aren't accessible yet. Can you give an example? Are you talking about like the interactive blocks?
Yeah, so the blocks I have had pretty good experience with as far as the storyline blocks. So some of them, like the process document, is you get stuck. So the last time, I just tried this pretty recently, where I wanted to do a process document. So you have like there's a series of pieces, and then you just click the arrow to get to the next one. So it would read through the first one fine, and then it would get stuck. Like I had a block that had 8 of them, and it would read all the content in the first one, and then it would read the titles of all 8, but it would go through like the little 8 check marks at the bottom. It would never read the content on the other slides. So it's just not there yet. That's an example. So the ones that work really well, so like the photo ones, there's a photo that has the hotspots on it. That works well. The accordions work well, the photos. So a lot of them do work well, but there are a handful of the more interactive ones that aren't there yet.
Cool.
And the Vpat will share that. So yeah, that's perfect. But you don't have to worry about tab order in Rise. It's just based on how your outline is set up. Lectora, it's driven by the build order. So and none of you are using Lectora, it looks like, so I'll skip Lectora. Captivate is driven by the timeline. And then Camtasia, it doesn't apply because it's a video. And I included it here because, number one, you can build videos for your courses, but number two, you can actually publish a Camtasia video as a SCORM wrapped object. So
Carol, we
I
had
consider that.
a question just come in the chat. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get it addressed. Danielle Potter asked if Storyline's updated the accessibility of its question or quiz slides so the reader doesn't read every box or line.
Yes. So that's another thing that's happening in Storyline. Sorry, it was happening in Storyline, and they said they've fixed it. And it's still happening in Rise, where if you, let's say that you have a setup of a question, and then you have the paragraph to describe it, and then the question, and then the choices, it will read the choices. Sorry, it'll read the setup at the beginning of every single choice. So it basically runs out of space. So they basically hear the setup 5 times because it runs out of characters before that description is done. Storyline has fixed that. Rise has not.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. So that was tab order. Alt tags, except for Camtasia, they all have them. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, so captions. In Storyline 360, you can create them, import them, and export them. In Rise, you can only import them, and only for video right now, not for audio files at this point. But according to their Vpat, that is coming. Lectora only allows you to import them. Captivate allows you to create them, import them, and export them, and so does Camtasia. The fun comes in when you can export in one style and import in another. How are we doing on time? 9:13. So basically, there are SRTs and VTTs are the two most common types. Rise will only accept VTT, as I believe Storyline does too. Captivate, sorry, I'm not sure about that one. Camtasia will export in SRT. So basically, you need a converter that will take SRT to VTT, and they exist. You'll want to be careful about your content. If you have any content that cannot be shared, you'll want to be careful about that. So that's that. Understandable links. So Storyline 360, you can see here, all of them use, except for Camtasia, all of them use link text. All of them use buttons, and then Storyline and Lectora use hotspots as well, and so does Camtasia. Color contrast, in Storyline, any text can be edited. In Rise, editable text can be changed. So like if you insert text into just the page or in an accordion, those can be changed, but system text cannot. So the quizzes, you can't control it. Things that there's just some that you can't control. You can't make it darker, but that's one of the things they're working on. In Captivate and Camtasia, you can make it whatever you want. Okay, so this is here because I loved it. This is actually the thing that I found that led me to that checklist I referred to earlier. This was built as part of an Articulate design challenge, and I liked it so much that I asked for permission to share it. The only reason I put the screenshots in the presentation is because if you don't have an Articulate license, the link in the discussion guide probably won't work for you. I don't plan to cover it, but I wanted you to have it for reference later. And she also shared with me that it was created for a quick design challenge, so she did not make it accessible. If you do go out to the link and you view it and you see that it's not accessible, don't throw any shade online, because it was for a design challenge and it was a quick hit. So just wanted to give you that. I don't want her to have any negative consequences for doing me a solid. So, okay, this text is here only because I wanted to show you something. So I'm going to skip out of my presentation again, and we're going to go over here. So this is a screenshot, and remember I told you that we needed alternative text for images. You could put this all in the text box, but another solution is to make this text, to take the text in there. So I went through and I typed this all out yesterday and made it a text box. This is what I'm going to put it behind the image, and then visual users won't see it. The screen reader will. It'll read it like text on a page, and then these are marked as decorative. These two items here. So that's another way. And we put the page label up on top because you don't need it here. So that's another way that you can handle alternative text if you have a lot of it. So, but it does go through the dyslexia, low vision, physical or motor disabilities, screen reader users, the autism spectrum, deaf or hard of hearing, and then designing with anxiety. So that is the bulk of what I wanted to share. I do have a couple of minutes, so I thought I would share with you, before I do that, I'll ask for questions, but share with you a couple of these sources so that you can know how to use them, because they're pretty cool. And the color contrast checker is a little confusing. It took me a while to figure it out. I don't know why, but it did. So before we do that, Adam, are there any questions in chat, or does anybody have a question?
I don't see anything in the chat as of now, but feel free to throw that in there if you do have any questions, but so far I'm seeing nothing.
Cool. Okay, and I actually did pull this one up. Where to go? We'll make that bigger. Okay, so the foreground color is your text, and then the background color is your background. I don't know why this challenged me when I first saw it, but it'll show you the bigger the text, the less contrast you need. So this, what it does is if you put in your foreground color, and then the background color, it will tell you what the contrast ratio is. In this case, 8.59 to 1. I wouldn't worry so much about this number as I would these down here. So normal size text, this passes. If it's large text, it does not. The other thing that you'll need to do is use the hex color. So what I would do is I'm going to go back to my presentation and then, oops. So let's go to the page that we were on. Okay, so this text here. So we have the box. We go to more colors. And then they've started putting the hex color here. Gotta love them for that. So just copy that. You used to have to take the RGB, go out and convert that to hex on another online tool and then come back. So love Microsoft for this. So change that. And now we've got a 15 so the bigger the contrast, the better. But it completely passes. So let's play with it and let's maybe make this for the moment. We will make it this light gray, okay? So now if we go over here and get the hex color, it's 1 to 1. It's almost the same color as the background. So you can kind of see how that works. And you notice it just fails all the way through. And your accessibility checker will pick that up as well. But if you don't have that in the tool you're using, the authoring tool, you won't have that benefit. So that's that one. And then the WCAG their website it's confusing. I wanted to just point out to you the filter feature, which is, and I meant to look up, somebody gave me some suggestions on what to include in the what you search for as far as guidelines. But you can remove, so we don't need Flash anymore, so we don't need anything that's related to Flash. Nationwide standards are A and AA that we want to work to. You can also take out failures and advisory techniques and just sufficient techniques if you wish. And then that limits greatly how much stuff you have to wade through to get through the tips. So that's a little freebie for you there. And then the last one I'm going to show you, I'm going to put that back so it's not that light gray, is the color blindness simulator, which is pretty cool. I think it's thinking about it. There we go. So this one it's showing you how someone with different types of color blindness might view this. So this is kind of assuming that your vision is normal. So I think that's kind of funny, but it does give you some guidance on what it might look like for somebody. So here's one example, the red week. So they don't see red as well. It might look like this. And then green week might be this is pretty similar to me. Maybe I have it. And then blue week, it means the red comes through more so than the blue. Another version is monochromacy. So they just don't see colors really at all. There's that. And I believe the green blind is the more common. So anyway, it's just to kind of play around and make sure that what you're doing is visually able to be seen by somebody with a color blindness situation. So that's it as far as content. We have about 8 minutes left. So what questions do we have?
So we got 2 questions in the chat right now. One of them's from Riley. So he's asking, what's a good screen reader to use to test things for clients? Yes.
So JAWS, if you have the coin, I would pay for JAWS, because most people, in my experience, that need a screen reader use JAWS. It's put out by an organization that it's focused on that. That's all they do. And for some reason, I just draw a blank on what the acronym stands for, but Freedom Scientific puts it out. It is a little spendy. It's around $1,200, and there's a maintenance fee every year. But to get a true test, that's what I'd recommend. Or if you work with, if you have a company and you know that you have blind users who use a particular tool, get that one. Another one, a free tool, is NVDA, and it's a little different. You can get a lot closer to where you need to be with a free tool than no tool. And also Microsoft products, if you're wanting to check those, you can, there's a readability, or that you can read it out loud. That's a feature now. So, but those are the two tools that I'm most familiar with, JAWS and NVDA.
And then we had another one from Julie, want to know if there's an assessment or tool that would help us determine employees with unknown disabilities. So like, you know, anxiety, color blindness, et cetera, or anything like that.
Nope. And the other thing that you get into is HIPAA. So
Right.
we can ask, and if they volunteer, that's great. But we have to just assume that there are people in our audience that have those, and just design for all of them to the extent we can. You know, and there's a big debate in that area about, you know, how far do we go for a couple of people? And it's really, that's not the right question, in my opinion, because we want to, you know, we want to do these cool things, and we can still do the cool things. We just have to make sure that people who have additional needs can still consume the learning. So, you know, I showed you at the end those screenshots of the do's and don'ts, right? So a visual user can enjoy that, and a screen reader user can listen to it. So both needs are met, right? So it doesn't have to be an either or, it's a balance, right? And you'll hear the comment that it takes a lot longer to design for accessibility. And in the beginning, it probably does. We estimated probably double the time to retrofit. But really, if you incorporate this into your design from the beginning, it doesn't take that much more time. And it's, again, it benefits everybody. When you have a good, clean design, it benefits all of us. I don't know of anybody that just loves to look at a complicated, convoluted thing with lots of tiny details and you can't figure out where to go next. None of us like that. So just, if you incorporate that mindset into your learning, that you're going to build it for everybody, it just works. It's easier to sell it to people who are thinking, we're just, you know, I don't know of anybody who's blind, or I don't know of anybody with issues, so we're just going to build it the way we build it. So it should not be a hard sell to leadership, but I recognize that sometimes it is.
And Carol, those are the two big questions that I saw in the chat. Question for you. I know that there are some, I guess, what would you say to somebody like, I'm phrasing this question in my mind at the same time I'm trying to say it. Some activities and interactions are not ADA compliant, or like a drag and drop or things like that. So what would you say to somebody, you know, like how do we still make interactive and engaging e-learning content that is compliant? So what would you say to somebody that says, like, some of those, you know, you can't do it?
Yeah, so I would say keep the drag and drop, but have an alternative. So that could be, you know, click here for an accessible version or text only version. I would call it text only. Click here for a text only version or a different activity, and make that put that at the top of the page. And you wouldn't even have to necessarily have it visually on the screen. So you could have a text box with white text. The screen reader doesn't read color of text. So, you know, click XYZ or whatever, click this button. And I've done that before. So have the white text that says, click this button, and it's a transparent button for a text version. And then they just bypass the activity and make sure that if that drives the next button, that your thing they click also drives the next button. So certainly keep those things, just have an alternative for somebody who can't use it.
Cool. So that is all I'm seeing in the chat. Any other questions? Feel free to just jump on the phone or unmute yourself and throw that out there or put it in the chat. Any other questions for Carol before we tie a nice little bow around today's event?
No questions here. Thank you, Carol. That was really helpful information.
Excellent. Thank you.
How can we get a hold of Carol for additional questions?
What's your fee,
DawsonC at
Carol?
nationwide.com.
And $100.
That's
Yeah,
that's A-Rich at.
yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll send Carol's information out as well as send the presentation deck that Carol shared and then accessibility resources as well here in a minute. So you'll have all those, and Carol, if you're comfortable with it, I'll put your contact information in there.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. All right, lots of big thank yous to Carol. So big virtual applause for Ms. Carol Dawson for coming in today and sharing her time. Thank you to everybody who attended this month. Final thoughts before we wrap up. If you are willing to share your organization's LMS, let me know. You'll have my contact information here in a second, arich@athene.com. Otherwise, hope to see everybody back in June, July, and every other month that we do a Tech SIG meeting. And have a fabulous Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks everybody for coming in today.
Thanks, everyone.